Hey everybody, okay, I just learned something about Zoom. You get 40 minutes unless you pay. Now, crazy thing, I pay for Zoom on my phone, but not on my computer, and I'm having trouble connecting the two. I'm not computer suave. You guys know this. If you've been around for a while, you know this. So we have rescheduled the Zoom for tomorrow. If you get the newsletter, please check your email. If you would like the newsletter, I understand $30 a bit steep for some people, especially last minute. Send 20. But if you send whatever you send through the money apps, please put your email in the memo. Otherwise, I don't know where to send your newsletter because everything goes through the email. You don't want to miss this. Now I want to share with you something I ran across. We're all confused as to, when I say we all, average Americans, Hispanic, Black, Latino, white, Asian, it doesn't matter. Why all of a sudden it feels like there's a subgroup in the Black community that just hates us all, but especially white people, palm-colored people, they like to say. Anyway, I found this amazing woman explaining how the Communist Party infiltrated the Black church.
Sold white men as slaves, black men sold black men as slaves. Black rulers are no more human than yellow, red, or white rulers. Neither are they less brutal. The placing of the repository of everything right and just among the darker races is a dastardly communist trick to use race as a means of grabbing and enslaving the whole of humanity.
And the white progressive church, especially the Episcopalian Church. That is a woke liberal church. What they're doing is this book that this woman's going to be talking about, I'm going to let you hear her in just a second, is for the past 70 years, the Communist Manifesto was to infiltrate through Christian churches to bring racial hatred back to the forefront so that they could use Black people as a weapon to destroy America from the inside out, to use white liberals to destroy America from the inside out.
Communist Party. And when I saw the video of Brandon Johnson,
our people hire our people. In my administration, 45% of my administration is Black, 25% is Latina, 30% is white, 8% is Asian. It is the most diverse administration in the history of Chicago.
All I could think about was sellout pastors who at one point in our history sold their congregations out for communism. I also think about some of the socialist movements, after that communist movement in like the mid to late 30s and things like that. When we see some of that socialist movement, or when we think about Margaret Sanger and people who have gone into Black churches with ill intent. And now we wonder today in 2025, what the heck happened to the Black church? Why they want to riot and march for BLM, and why they so progressive, why they have such socialist leanings. Read this book.
It's to the point that citizens of America are being made to feel like we are foreigners in our own country. Now, if you love America, please listen to this lady explain this much better than I just did.
And how, yes, it started with communism, but who are the players that continue to keep this alive and keep it alive in especially some of our Black churches, or many of our Black churches, and white progressive denominations, think the Episcopals, things like that. Not saying every Episcopalian church is progressive, but there are a lot of progressive Episcopalian churches. Mike Booker T. Washington, there is a class of colored people who make a business of keeping the troubles, the wrongs, and the hardships of the Negro race before the public. Having learned that they are able to make a living out of their troubles, they have grown into the settled habit of advertising their wrongs, partly because they want sympathy and partly because it pays. Some of these people do not want the Negro to lose his grievances because they do not want to lose their jobs.
The situation, and here's what else he had to tell us.
This all started with Donald Trump saying he was going after criminals. What I've heard today that he went after kids, parents when they're attending their kids' graduations, people that were working in the fashion district, people that showed up, people who had asylum, received asylum, were going through the process, showed up to court like they've done over and over, and were taken to the basement and arrested. So right now they're doing more to spread fear, and that is, and they're not keeping everybody safe. You know, they're trying to say that they're keeping us safe by arresting a seamstress in the fashion district.
The LAPD, they tell us they went in and dispersed the crowd. They say no one was arrested in Chinatown. Now, chaos erupted earlier on Friday in the heart of the fashion district after ICE detained employees inside a clothing warehouse. Protesters threw objects at armed agents and then tried to block their armored trucks from leaving. Those agents deploying tear gas and pepper spray. Hundreds of protesters then swarmed the Los Angeles Federal Building where they believed the detainees were being held. Some of the crowd attacking law enforcement guarding the facility.
This looks like a communist country in this video, not the America I grew up loving. What's happening in the streets, folks? This is a communist takeover.
As she talked about seeing ICE agents carry out an operation at a Home Depot in the Westlake district earlier in the day.
This morning, I woke up early to get ready for my students' culmination. I'm sorry, y'all. It was supposed to be a good day. 3 blocks away, I saw laborers running from our local Home Depot. I took off my heels, grabbed my megaphone, and ran in that direction. What I found devastated me. The food stands were empty. It was a ghost town.
So we have educators. Rather than educating your children on the Constitution of America, instead of educating your children about what it is to be a citizen of this country, she grabbed the microphone, put a mask on, ran down the street to scream at the police because she thought they were deporting people. This is a problem. We have activist teachers in our classroom. We have the Democrat Party, which you cannot at this point, in all honesty, sincerity, and truth, say that the Democrat Party is not in bed with the Communist Party. And we have Republican elected officials doing nothing. At this point in America, the only thing that would calm my heart would be to see our president call out the National Guard and do mass incarcerations. But then again, you run up against the fact that the executive branch has been pumped up for the past 20 years. The Democrat Socialist movement has been using it as a backdoor to let violent criminals back on our streets, to try to overturn our constitutional rights as citizens. At this point, folks, what do you think is going to happen in this country? How does anybody see this ending? Because 20% of the people in this country right now are foreign born. 15% of that are illegally here, or here on work visas or student visas. I just want America back. And if that means shutting it down and mass deportating people, I'm okay with that. I know people want to say, how cruel. Jesus would be in the streets. Jesus would be in the streets. Would he though?
Or money changers. If Jesus were living today, he would be persecuted like the communists who seek to do good for the common people. When I read that part, it just reminded me of a lot of what I saw in 2020. A lot of the Black liberation theology. If Jesus was alive today, he would turn over that table. If Jesus was alive today, Jesus is Black. Jesus is a part of the riots. Jesus would be marching with BLM. Where do we get that language from? Well, when we hear it, especially in the church, this is where that first started from. And I don't think we understand that a lot of our racial issues in America have a long history of help.
She's right. They do. We've been co-opted. We've been told that if we provide enough assistance to the brown people, to the Black people, if we equity punish them in school, if we equally punish them in the courtroom, well, equity punishment, which means we punish them less than because of the color of their skin and the injustices to their forefathers. If we do all of this somehow, some way, they're going to feel righteous. But really, the opposite has happened, people. Listen to me. Nobody needs a hand up in America. There should be no Black scholarships. There should be no black only universities or black historical colleges. There should be no DEI. Either you have the ability to do something or you don't. When I was a child, I wanted to be an astronaut. Guess what didn't happen? I'm not an astronaut. Wouldn't it be a terrible thing if I just started throwing a temper tantrum screaming I wanted to be an astronaut and they sent me up like Katy Perry for 3 seconds of flight and then I came down and claimed I'd done something just like men? Isn't that ridiculous? Well, that's where America happens to be. So I love you guys with all my heart. So sorry about the blunder with Zoom. I am learning. You are learning. Let's learn together. Like, comment, and subscribe.
Incitement of racial warfare place all the ills of the Negro at the door of white leaders in America. Capitalism and imperialism are made symbols of oppressive white rule in keeping with instruction from the Kremlin. To one familiar with red trickery, it is obvious that placing all the blame of the Negro ills at the door of white leaders in America is to remove all responsibility from the Negro. This tends to make the Negro A, feel sorry for himself, B, blames others for his failures, C, ignore the countless opportunities around him, D, jealous of the progress of other racial and national groups, E, expect the white man to do everything for him, especially when it comes to racial progress.